5 weeks ago, I had the opportunity with Scott Pelley to be on 60 Minutes, and I said publicly that I was seriously considering running for president as a centrist independent outside of the two-party system. And I said that because over the course of the last year, as I've examined and traveled the country, I began to realize that the challenges and the problems facing the American people, the fracturing of trust and confidence in leadership and in government, is not just because of one party or just because of the lack of dignity and respect and character of this president, but I've come to the conclusion that the two-party system for all too long now is broken, and the level of dysfunction and polarization and revenge politics has reached a level in which I think we are on the clock as a country. We're sitting with $22 trillion of debt that I think is immoral because it's going to be on the shoulders and the backs of our kids and our grandkids. We have an immigration system right now that has been weaponized as a political problem that should be solved in a humane way. We have a healthcare system, an education system in America that's not working. And certainly our standing in the world under this president has been placed in a position where I think it's very fragile, and we've lost the trust and confidence of our allies. But at the core of it all is a lack of leadership. And for any of us in the audience who are young entrepreneurs, who are part of an organization or a business, you look at the country right now and it's just not working, and we all know something's wrong. And at the core of what's wrong is the fact that we have both parties at the extremes steeped in a level of ideology and self-interest and self-preservation that is overriding their core responsibility to all of us. And it's not that I'm running, if I run for president, against the Democratic Party. If I run for president, I'm running because I love the country, I'm profoundly concerned about where we are, and the two-party system is broken, dysfunctional, and in need of great repair.
This message, sort of message of common sense centrism, I do believe that it has a lot of play. And you know, we were talking about this backstage. Tim Wu, the legal scholar, just wrote a really great essay for the New York Times in which he's called The Oppression of the Supermajority. And what he said is that the story of our time is not actually hyperpartisanship. The story of our time is that a few hyper-vocal partisans are strangling the will of the majority, which actually agrees on a number of bipartisan policy proposals. All of that said, you actually have a great turnout. You filled the room here. So I guess my question is, for all that talk of the common sense proposals, it does feel like the people who are really capturing the national imagination, either on the left or the right, are those hyperpartisan voices.
Well, that's true. I think we're living in a society right now where you can send a tweet about anything and get 10, 15, 20 million followers, and all of a sudden you're an iconic celebrity. I understand that, but that's not going to solve the issues that we're facing. The issues that we're facing as a society and as a country are real, they're serious, and they need thoughtfulness, they need discipline, they need leadership, and it's not a tweet that's going to solve the problems. Let's just take a couple of things that have come up in the last couple of weeks. First off, when the Green New Deal was outlined and a number of Democratic elected officials signed on to it, what I did is I immediately got it and read it line for line. I wanted to know what was in it. I wanted to know whether it was real, realistic, and it could be accomplished. So I mentioned we're sitting with $22 trillion of debt. Under this president, we're adding $1 trillion of debt a year. You should know that we're spending $500 billion in interest expense. And for the first time in America's history, our national debt is larger than the entire US economy. You should also know that during the time that President Obama was president for 8 years, the Republicans banged on him every single day, McConnell, Boehner, and then Ryan, every day, to reduce the debt, reduce the deficit. President Trump becomes president, and for 2 years, Republicans do not say one word, not a word, about the national debt because it's not in their political favor to do so. But you can't try and solve one extreme with the other. And now we have a new extreme, and it's the Democratic platform. Now, I said these are well-intentioned people, but I have a right to disagree with what they are proposing. At the core of our country, which is foundational, is a free enterprise system which is core to our democracy. For us to start moving towards a level of socialism is such an extreme position and something that I think is inconsistent with the values and the heritage and the tradition of the country. And that is what Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and others are proposing, to try and defeat Donald Trump with a far extreme proposal. If Donald Trump runs against one of those types of candidates, it's my belief that Donald Trump will be reelected, that the vast majority of Americans are not going to embrace socialism. Going back to the Green New Deal, in the Green New Deal, there is a proposal that says that by 2030, every building in America is going to be transformed to clean energy. Now, that's a well-intentioned idea, but it's never going to happen. So my question to the people who are proposing these things is, let's propose things that are true, that are honest, that are sincere, and that are realistic. Just to put the math in context, that would mean that 2,700 buildings a day between now and 2030 would be transformed, and the government doesn't own those buildings. Said they would have to mandate, and the cost to it. And so these issues that have to be resolved and solved require a centrist position. There are good people on both sides of the aisle that if they came together and left their ego and ideology out of the room, and we had the right level of leadership and commitment to solving the problem, I believe we could begin to create a scenario in which the American people would be served, and served much better than we are right now. Some of the facts that you should know that I think are consistent with some of the underlying issues and why we must be serious about addressing them is not only about the education system, the healthcare system, the fact that we've got to deal with climate change. Over 40% of the American families today are $400 away from a personal crisis that could lead to bankruptcy. We have 5 million young people in America, mostly African American and Hispanic, are not in school, not in work. 1 out of 8 people in America go home every night without the ability to have food in their refrigerator. We have an opioid crisis that is out of control. We have a mental health crisis. We have a homelessness crisis. So all of these issues that have not been dealt with for many years because of political lack of will, and the two-party system's core belief that their willingness to solve these problems are subordinated by their self-preservation and self-interest and self-ideology are not going to be solved if a Democrat wins the White House in 2020, regardless of who it is, because the system is rigged, the system is corrupt. And every American must understand how fragile this moment is and the need to transform, disrupt the system with a centrist approach. Now, there are millions of people who are saying to me, this can't be done, this is a fool's errand, this is a vanity project, this is narcissism. Ladies and gentlemen, I love this country. I'm living proof of the American dream. I came from public housing. I came from nothing. My story, like many of you in the room, could only happen in America. But it is not an entitlement. The American dream, the promise of the country, it's not an entitlement. We have to earn it. And right now, if we don't start recognizing how fragile this moment is and get serious about solving these problems with real solutions that are not fantasy and Alice in Wonderland ideas, we're going to be in serious trouble. 100 million people did not vote in 2016. 100 million. And they didn't vote. Apathy, and because they had what they believed to be a poor choice. I want to give them a better choice in 2020. I want to give 100 million people a reason to vote, and I want to galvanize the millions of people who are going to turn 18 for the first time and give them an opportunity to vote for somebody who will solve these problems. Thank you very much.